Audit Committee to order. As you had noted, this meeting is being recorded for minute-taking purposes, as well as for posting on the agency's website. The recording of the proceedings will be posted there. When we speak, we do ask for clarity of following the conversation that we introduce ourselves when we speak. So this is Claudio Gualtieri, Chair, and we will take roll call votes for a number of different actions today, including our first, which is attendance. So with that, I'd ask for a roll call vote to confirm the existence of a quorum so we can proceed with today's committee meeting.
Claudio Gualtieri.
Here.
Grant Ritter.
Here.
CC Woods. Matthew Brackman. Carlene Zambetti on behalf of Demas Commissioner Nancy Navarrete.
Here.
And I believe Mr. Brackman just joined us. Good morning, Mr.
I'm
Brackman.
here. Good morning.
Great, thank you.
Great, and I will also ask that the Access Health senior leadership staff introduce themselves, as well as our guest from Clifton, Larson Allen, please.
Good morning, Susan Rich-By, Director of Legal and Governmental Affairs for Access Health Connecticut.
Hi, this is Pam Rowe, Controller of Access Health Connecticut.
Nicoleta McTighe, Principal with Clifton Larson Allen, CLA.
I'm Brianna Camp. Brianna Camp, Senior from CLA.
Great, thanks everyone. That brings us to the next item for business today, which is public comment. I've been informed in advance that we had no written requests for public comment nor notification of public comment ahead of this meeting. I'll just pause to confirm that be the case, and if so, we'll move on to the next item.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. We have not received any public comments for today's meeting.
Good morning, all. James Michelle is on.
Thank you, James. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
So then the next item for today's meeting is the approval of our last committee meeting minutes from November the 9th. I trust that the members have had a chance to review those minutes and would ask for a motion to approve such minutes at this time.
So moved. This is Grant Ritter.
Grant, thanks for moving. Do I have a second?
Second, Matt Brackman.
Thank you, Matt. Motion is moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask for a roll call on approval of the November 9th minutes.
Claudio Gualtieri.
Yes.
Grant Ritter.
Yes.
CC Woods. Carlene Zambetti.
Yes.
And Matthew Brackman.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, this is Claudio again. Just moving on to the next item for agenda. This will be a presentation of our 2023 financial and programmatic audits from Clifton Larson Allen, which I will turn it over to Nicoleta to walk through the presentation today.
Thank you. Nicoleta McTighe with CLA. Today, I'm going to present required audit communication discussion. So we, as auditors, are required to communicate with those charged with governance, which is the audit committee, twice. Once at the beginning of the audit to inform you of our engagement scope, responsibilities as auditors, other planning matters, and engagement timing. And then another discussion is at year end when we present the audit, the results of the audit. Next slide, please. Next. So basically, I just went over the agenda. So I'll go over the engagement scope, responsibilities, and independence. Some planning matters, communications are required, engagement timing, and last slide has my contact information should anyone need to contact me for any questions related to the audit. On the next slide, I have listed our engagement scope. So the first one is the audit of the financial statement. As part of the audit, we are going to issue an opinion on the financial statements, whether those financial statements are free of material misstatements, and they are prepared in accordance to GAAP and government auditing standards. Another part of our engagement is programmatic audit. So basically, we are going to audit the Access Health compliance with 45 CFR Part 155 as prescribed by the Department of Health and Human Services and Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. So there are several requirements for the programmatic audit, but we are required to report only on 4 items, which are general functions, eligibility determinations, enrollment functions, and certification of qualified health plans. And at the end of the audit, we are going to report the results of both the financial statements and the programmatic audit. The next slide has auditors' responsibilities. Those responsibilities are spelled out in the engagement letter or statement of work that Access Health has already signed, and we are making you aware of those charged with governance for Access Health. Our responsibilities are to identify and assess the risk of material misstatements on financial statements, whether those misstatements are due to fraud or error. And once we have assessed the risk of material misstatements, we design and perform our audit procedures to respond to those risks. And we examine on test basis. Obviously, we don't examine 100% evidence regarding the amounts and disclosures in the financial statements. To do the audit, we have to obtain an understanding of internal controls that are relevant to the audit in order to design the audit procedures. They are appropriate to certain circumstances. We do not express an opinion on effectiveness of the internal control. We look at the internal controls and understand them just so we can design our audit procedures in response to those internal controls. As part of the audit, our responsibilities are to evaluate whether or not the accounting policies are appropriate, and the accounting estimates that are part of the financial reporting are reasonable. And those estimates are made by management, and as part of the audit, we evaluate whether those accounting estimates and accounting policies are appropriate and related to the financial statements. As part of the audit, we conclude one of the items in our auditor's report is to conclude whether or not there is a substantial doubt about the entity's ability to continue as a going concern for a reasonable period of time, and that reasonable period of time is for 1 year beyond the financial statement date, or that can be extended to 15 months if there are items that could point towards a doubt about the ability to continue as a going concern. Not that there is a concern for Access Health, but that's one of the requirements for any entity that's being audited. Next slide. As I mentioned initially, we are required to perform the audit, and based on the audit, to express an opinion whether the financial statements are prepared. They are prepared by management. They conform in material respects with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America, or GAAP. When we do the audit, we provide reasonable assurance whether those financial statements are free of material misstatements. So an audit is not an absolute assurance that there are no errors in the financial statements, but we provide a reasonable assurance whether they are free of material misstatements. As part of the audit, we perform tests of compliance with provisions of laws, regulations, and contracts and grants. They might have a material effect on the financial statements. And another item as part of the audit, in the end, we are going to report on internal controls over financial reporting and compliance with the provisions of laws, regulations, contracts, and grant agreements. Those requirements are by government auditing standards, and this report is usually referred to as the Yellow Book reporting. Next slide. Under other matters, in order to perform the audit, we have to be independent of the entity. There are no relationship between any of our representatives and the Connecticut Health Insurance Exchange. And in our professional judgment will impair our independence. So we are independent to perform the audit of Access Health. Another item that I wanted to emphasize in this presentation is the importance of the communication. Two-way communication is important. The start of communication for this audit is today, and we encourage you to provide us with any information that you consider relevant to the audit. As I mentioned initially, my contact information is at the end of the slides, and should you have any questions that you need to contact me related to the audit, please feel free to do so anytime. It is important that you communicate your understanding of risk of fraud and the controls in place to prevent and detect fraud, and whether or not you are aware of any non-compliance with laws, regulations, contract, and grant agreements. And as part of the audit, either me or one member of the team, which probably will be Brianna, will reach out to one of the members of the committee just to have in more detail interview or questions related to your understanding of risk of fraud and controls that are in place. And that's normal audit procedure. Another item I wanted to bring to your attention for the current year is that there will be a new GASB being adopted, GASB 96 or SEBITAS, which is related to the agreements for information technology. So this is very similar to the GASB 87 leases that was implemented in the prior year. Similarities are very it's basically the same statement, but since those kind of agreements were not included in the GASB 87, they have their own GASB, and they're going to be implemented this year. Similar to the leases, financial statements and notes to the financial statements are going to change. Right to use an asset, which is right to use somebody else's software, and a deferred inflow will be reported in the statement of net position. The notes to the financial statements will give more detail related to what the liabilities are going to be related to those commitments, if you will. To date, we believe the management is doing a great job as far as implementing GASB 96. Implementation has started. Software vendor is selected. We believe that all the agreements are inventoried and are being analyzed based on discussions we've had with Anne-Marie and Pam. And I believe the next step is the integration of the new software related to GASB 96 to the financial statement software. So as far as the implementation goes, based on what I know so far, what other governments entities have been doing, Access Health is actually in the forefront of implementing and where they should be as far as implementation of GASB 96 goes. So I do not foresee any issues as far as timing of the audit goes because of the new GASB, because as everyone knows, every time there is new GASB, new statement to be implemented, there is a big undertaking, if you will, to understand the statement and to implement it. And sometimes that could result in a delay to the financial statements. But I believe the management they are doing what they should be doing to have that the GASB being implemented and have no issues on it. On the next slide, I have listed other communications that will happen. As I mentioned initially, we communicate to you twice, once in the planning and once after we're done with the audit. So at the completion of the audit, we'll communicate the items that I have listed in this slide. So we'll communicate any significant account policy changes, adoption or changes in new accounting principles, which will be GASB 96. So we'll report to you what changes are in the financial statements as a result of this GASB, and any accounting estimates that are included in the financial statements. We will report to you any significant audit adjustments, if there were any disagreements with management or difficulties in performing the audit, any irregular and illegal acts that we might have encountered during our audit work, and any consultation by management with our other auditors if we become aware of that. And should any matters affect our independence, we'll report that also. If there are any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies or any other control deficiencies in the financial statements, they will be reported also. As far as the engagement timing, this is what we think will happen based on discussions we've had with the management controls office. We are starting our final field work end of August. We are usually in the field for about a week, and then we continue doing our field work as needed, either virtual or coming back on site to continue field work. At this point, we anticipate to issue a draft of the financial statements on October 2nd, and giving the client about 2 weeks to review and approve those draft of the financial statements, and issue the final drafts end of the month, end of October. And those draft of financial statements will be presented to you in the November meeting for review and approval. Last slide, this is my contact information, email, and phone number that I can be contacted anytime. This is the prepared presentation. If you have any questions, I'm here to respond. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicolette. Very informative of the process that you've laid out and the next steps, and very appreciative of your contact information so folks can be in touch with you about the two-way communication and raise any issues that they may want you to look at. Any questions from committee members? Seeing none, thank you, and we'll turn to Susan Rich-Bai for the SMART tool. SMART, which actually tool is part of the T, so it's just SMART.
Yes, thank you very much, Claudio. Susan Rich-Bai, Director of Legal and Governmental Affairs, and we just wanted to provide you an update on our SMART, which is a state-based marketplace annual reporting tool, which is another method that HHS uses to make sure that state exchanges are complying with all the requirements, in addition to the programmatic audit that CLNA will do from an outside perspective. Access Health also completes the SMART. So the ACA requires that state-based marketplaces keep accurate accounting of all activities, receipts, and expenditures, and also that we monitor all these activities and we report to HHS on our exchange-related activities, and then complete an annual report and engage an independent auditor, CLNA, to perform an annual independent financial and programmatic audit to ensure our compliance with regulations and standards. And then CMS early on in 2015 developed the SMART so that there was one tool that put together all of the components that exchanges needed to report to HHS separately, all into one place. And the SMART has 4 components: eligibility and enrollment, which is probably by and large most of the SMART. The financial and programmatic audits, which we just spoke about, program integrity, and then finally the attestations of completion that various members of the senior team complete. So the SMART is due each year on June 1st, and we filed our SMART for 2022 on June 1st, just last week, and we anticipate hearing back from CMS in a few months We did not find any issues when completing our responses to the SMART, and we don't anticipate any recommendations or findings on it. So I will pause for any questions.
Thank you, Susan. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, I appreciate your presentation, and that brings us to our last item of business, which is a motion for adjournment.
So moved. Mrs. Grant.
Thanks, Grant. A motion is moved. Is there a second?
Second, Matt Brock.
Thank you, Matt. I'll ask for a roll call on adjournment.
Claudio Gualtieri,
Yes.
Grant Ritter,
Yes.
CC Woods, Carleen Zambetti,
Yes.
and Matthew Brackman.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Have a good day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you all very much. Bye.
Bye-bye.